Welcome back to Imagine Better, everybody. This is Mark Powers, your host, and today, look who I have in my studio, Mr. Michael Angelo Caruso. Now, this guy is Mr. Presentation. Welcome, buddy. How you been?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I didn't know you had a soundtrack and fancy.
It was a button I pressed. You didn't see it. Actually, I hit with my foot. And just, see, did it again.
Congratulations on all your success, man. I've been following your podcast success.
Thank you.
And thanks for the invitation.
You're welcome, but I am the one that's humbled, honored, and grateful, so thank you. We go back quite a few years. It's been, we've been catching up a little bit more recently than we have in decades, I would say.
Life happens.
Yes, yeah.
Both traveled quite a bit in our lifetime, and it's hard to keep up relationships when you're traveling, out making new friends.
Yeah.
But that's part of the tapestry of life. You come back, you got friends all over the world, you got friends at home, hopefully.
Hopefully.
And it's been a lovely, lovely ride.
Definitely. I mean, today we can talk about whatever we want, to be honest. When you promote this, you have to have some kind of a topic of discussion and the power of a presentation, or what did I call it? The presentation, okay? Yeah. You're the presentation master. You're the guru of dominating a stage and teaching people how to, I need a lot of help in that area.
No, you don't. Everything's good. But I do think everything's a presentation, and we live now in a very...
That's the title right there, actually. Everything's a presentation.
Yeah, and I believe it, because we live in a very informal society, and everything's kind of been, all the formalities and pretense.
Right.
Even the stuff that we used to do in the 80s seems so quaint now by comparison,
Yeah.
So the way we greet people is a presentation, such as it is. Yeah. The way we text people is a presentation. The websites are a presentation.
Right.
Right. In fact, if the presentation is good on the website, you can get people to hang around a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And then there are the more serious presentations, like sales presentations, where you're trying to get somebody to give you their credit card.
Yeah.
Or keynote speeches, which I'm very involved with now, not only delivering, but also teaching people how to do it.
Nice. How would you say presentations, or would you say presentations carry into someone's personal lives as well? So you have professional, which is the obvious, but what about personal life as well?
Well, I got married a year ago, and I feel like I've been presenting nonstop for 365 days.
She's in studio today, guys.
The redhead in the house.
She'll be here next week, too, in that seat.
I think, think about this. I mean, I had to propose. I wanted to propose to Renee.
Should have waited till you got here today, and then we could have had a great time.
With all the lights and camera, confetti in the ceiling.
That's right. Shh, darn it.
But think about that, a marriage proposal, or the first date, or the first job interview. Because if you don't pass the first job interview, you're not going to get the second one.
Correct.
I got a really kind referral from a former boss of mine. Hadn't heard from him in years.
Right.
Bill Douglas is his name. He's in Florida now, and he hit me up and he said, "I've got a friend." It was an unusual request. He said, "I've got a friend, and he's relocated from Florida to Washington State, and he currently works for Google, and he wants to get a job at Uber."
Interesting. Okay.
And I was wondering if you could help him punch up his presentation skills, because a job interview is a presentation.
Right.
And I got an email from the guy last week that he got the job at Uber.
Awesome, buddy. Good job.
So
that's awesome.
He took some of my advice, I'm sure, because he told me so in a nice testimonial. But the point is that we can all be better at this. It's kind of like driving, Mark. Everybody thinks they're a pretty good driver, but there's a lot of dented cars on the freeway.
Exactly. I'm a little bit more on the cautious side these days.
Yeah.
So, I don't want a ticket, and
that's because
I like my car.
You're not 20 anymore and living the life.
No. Trying to live a life, not living the life. Yeah. And I'm definitely not 20 anymore. I've been there a couple times.
One thing I admire about you, presentation-wise, is you've always been a big thinker, and you have scored some pretty big deals in your life. I don't know if it's...
Thank you.
Where did you get that? Because maybe you got it from mom and dad. Maybe you cultivated it during your time at General Motors. But you have this big thinker kind of appeal. You get people's attention and you do big things with them.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I definitely wasn't from my parents. My background, my dad was blue collar. We were a blue collar family. Didn't make a lot of money. My dad was a roofer most of my life.
So he put a roof over your head?
Put a roof over my head. And he taught me how to do that industry. And so I did learn how to be an entrepreneur, and I learned how to run a business at the very early age of, I think it was 10 or 12. He put me up on the roof in the summers. But it wasn't until I moved to California, which, gosh, I was 1988 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I lived out there for several years, and I just had to dive into life and figure it out. I had no guidance. It's probably why I'm messed up most of the time in my life. I've made some really poor choices. But I've also gained a tremendous amount of strength and skill sets that I think also helped carve my way in life,
That's an interesting parallel to what I do most of the time now, which is teaching people how to enter the keynote circuit or get paid to talk.
Right.
Is that so many people watch good keynote speakers and just feel like, I can do this.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with stand-up comedy. You watch a good comedian, you think, well, I'm funny too.
Right.
That may not necessarily be true.
Yeah.
So a lot of people kind of go it alone, and if you ask people after they finish a presentation, because I'm always at the head table at these events if I'm speaking, and all the keynote speakers come back and sit at my table. That's where we all were sitting.
Yeah.
And I'll say to them, to a person now, I'll say, how did you think you did? And they would say, always, pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. And you know what Jim Collins said in his book, Good to Great, the very first sentence, good is the enemy of great.
Oh, I like that. I never heard that.
Yeah. Well, you probably read it.
Who was the author?
Jim Collins.
Jim Collins.
It was a few years back. You probably read it and forgot it. But Collins was, he hit it, man, is that this idea of trying to be better than the average person is well worth the effort, especially if you're working with somebody that's been down the trail before.
Nice. Now, talking about books, you might have a couple in house here today. Let's walk through a couple of these real quick. Just show them, talk like word hacks. Tell me what this book is about. I knew you were an author. I haven't read your books yet, so thank you. I'm going to. I've been collecting. Everyone that comes on this show, almost everyone is an author.
Yeah.
I think I've only had one that wasn't. Two actually, and I enjoy reading their books because I get to learn more about them, their style, their skills, their experiences, or whatever they're sharing in between these covers.
Sure.
So walk me through word hacks. What's this all about?
Well, it was a kind of an engineered book because unlike most books that have a beginning, a middle, and an end, this book is put together in what are called printer spreads.
Oh.
A printer spread in the trade is the left-hand side of the page, which is the left side of the printer spread.
Right.
There's another printer spread every time you open, right?
Nice.
And so that's the format throughout the book. You're going to get 5 tips on any given topic. I opened here for, coincidentally, just opened to it, hacks for getting paid to speak. 5 ideas. Right. And then when you turn the page, you see 5 cool ideas for building your speaking business. Now, the book isn't all about speaking. It's tons of career ideas and tips.
Yeah.
But
I'm excited.
Thank you. But the reason this is important, especially for people that haven't written a book, you should get back to your 2 podcasters that did not write a book yet.
Right.
This is a pretty easy book to put together because you're just cobbling together the ideas. You don't need a narrative. The characters don't have to intertwine. There's no plot to figure out. So it's a very easy book to put together.
Nice.
And the second book was just a little calling card I did where this book is a full-on 170 pages or so.
Yes.
This book is only 36. It's more like a booklet, Mark.
Right.
And I've been giving this to people on planes for a long time. This is written in evergreen format, so it never gets old. And because it never gets old, I just keep reprinting it. Sometimes I change the cover.
Right.
I keep the young picture of myself on here 20 years on.
You're headless.
I've been reprinting this book for 20 years.
You're headless. What's up with that?
I know. That's not even me.
That's just your bright idea, though. Yeah.
Some people think this is their favorite photo of me.
Oh, really?
No, yeah. But when people on the plane, you're sitting next to somebody for 3 hours and they say, finally, do you have a card? And I say, no, I don't have a card, but I'll give you a book. And their eyes light up.
Better.
The best calling card ever. Highly recommended for anybody that wants to do something in the business.
Excellent. If you guys have questions, drop a comment. Let Michael and I know, and I'll get him to respond back to you guys. So, I mean, this is great. Where can our audience find these bad boys?
Well, there's a new website out. It's called Amazon.
Yeah, I think they were just a brand new startup recently, weren't they?
Yeah, they're doing all right, and you can pick them up there. Amazon's also great for people on the road because they have order fulfillment and that kind of thing.
drop them wherever you're at the time.
But I think this is the challenge now for people in the speaking business. It's not enough just to be good at one thing anymore. You have to have a platform. Even rock and roll bands, when they go out, Fleetwood Mac goes out.
Yeah.
It'd be great if they had a new album. They don't.
No kidding.
But if they had an album, they would be selling merch and T-shirts, and Stevie Nicks would write an autobiography if she hasn't already. And now there's a bunch of stuff for people to purchase and buy and get involved with. And I think it's the same thing for speakers these days. It's not enough just to do keynotes. You should probably offer coaching. You should have a podcast. You should have all the bells and whistles so that people can access you.
Yeah.
And it's not enough to have a podcast on one platform. You have to be across the spectrum.
Yeah, and I haven't done that yet. So my platform, my home, if you will, is YouTube. And I've been growing that
Not
channel.
a bad place to live for a speaker.
It's still growing. It's only been, 3 months, I think I've been doing this now, and I'm at like 100 or 700 and something subscribers or something like
Pretty
that.
good.
So it's growing, but it's taking baby steps, week over week, episode over episode. I'm gaining the traction. So, platform's critical because I too have a book. It wasn't because of this show, but it's something that in the beginning I promoted quite a bit.
Right.
I haven't at all this year. Well, that's not true. Very limited promotion. Obviously, I have the podcast. I need to push it across other platforms to get more exposure and more traction and bandwidth out there. So I do agree with that. But I needed to start somewhere. So I was like, I am going to create this concept. I'm going to call it Imagine Better. I pitched it, Mr. Terry being a mutual friend of ours. He loved it, and he encouraged me to get out of my comfort zone and my fear that I had to get back in front of the camera looking at all you guys and risk looking like an idiot, but he convinced me to do it. He says, you just got to do it. You're never going to be prepared enough. Just do it and correct it as you go. An episode, the pilot episode, as him and I call it, the inaugural, was really good content. The quality of sound lighting sucked. It was so bad. So last week I had an opportunity to get him back in studio. So,
And redo.
And it was great. I think I almost had him in tears. So I try to get my guests to cry a little bit.
Yeah, it's not going to work with me. I'm in too good of a mood today. You mentioned early stuff being maybe not the best, and I think a lot of creators, they're reluctant to get started because everything's not perfect. And perfect, by the way, as standardized as the term perfect sounds, perfect is relative to the person's definition of perfect.
Agree.
Right? And they don't even sometimes know what perfect is. They just
I think there's such thing, though, to be honest.
No, there isn't. And that's the trick, is because if you're waiting for something to be perfect, you'll never launch.
Right.
We're binging Gordon Ramsay at home, and he's got a program called Kitchen Nightmares. It's probably his fifth iteration on TV. And even in Kitchen Nightmares, which has been out several years now, the first couple years are really shaky and low budget compared to what they're doing now. I mean, the camera definition has changed. There's the lighting's better. The shows seem to be better put together.
Yeah.
So what happens is, I think, perfect has iterations. You do it as perfectly as you can the first time, first season, first book, first speech, and then you monitor it. And you monitor feedback from people, and you fix it. You tweak it.
Yes.
Maybe fix is a bad word because it was already perfect.
Revise it.
Improve it.
And optimize it.
Optimize it. There you go.
All these marketing.
You didn't tell me we'd be using so many 3-syllable words today.
Exactly. You almost have to do a tongue exercise. Blah, 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 get it ready. So how do you present? Not present. I've seen you present. How do you prepare for a presentation? Is that a pretty lengthy process, and days upon days, weeks upon weeks, depending on what it is, I'm guessing?
It depends on what it is. Probably the most extreme preparation I've done in recent years is I was invited to do 2 TED Talks in a 10-day period. Wow. And the preparation, the average person at a TED Talk rehearses for about 100 hours.
Oh, wow.
That's the statistic from TED. And so you can imagine I was going crazy and trying to memorize 2 talks at the same time, by the way. And so tons of prep in those. And it turns out that's not my best work. I was very happy. Things went okay. I got invited to do a 3rd one here coming up. I'm excited about that.
Nice.
But I do a lot of improv when I speak, and I do a lot of what's called reflexive humor, meaning something will happen in the room and then I'll say something as a result of what happened. It was nowhere in my notes, it wasn't in my repertoire of things, funny things to say.
Right.
And I think the audience loves that kind of a thing. And I picked up on that, and they love it so much, I've now working with this thing I call performance conversation.
Performance conversation.
Kind of what we're doing right now.
Okay, all right.
Right? Because if you and I were just chatting on a bar stool, which we've done
We have.
recently,
Right today.
it's just the two of us.
Right.
Just us girls, right?
Yeah.
But when we have a conversation in front of a camera, or when we have a conversation in front of a camera
Right.
that's going to be put out on YouTube, it's now a performance conversation.
Performance.
Yeah.
I love
And
it.
that's anyway, that's what I'm working with. But to fully answer your question
Yeah.
about prep, often what I'll do, especially if it's like an easy thing where I know what I'm doing,
Yes.
I'll just take a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and I'll tri-fold it, because if I'm wearing a jacket, it fits smoothly in the jacket. And these are my talking points. I know I'm going to have a greeting at the top. I know I'm going to say goodbye to people. Both are usually customized to the room.
Correct.
And then there are maybe 3 or 4 or 5 things that I want to teach the audience. And those become the talking points. So it's not full text. It's not even a full sentence. They're keywords that remind me what the next thing I have to talk about.
Yeah, that's
If
how
it's a short list, I can memorize it, which means it never comes out of my pocket unless I get in trouble.
Right.
Sometimes it's on the floor, especially if it's a wedge monitor, I can put it on the monitor and kind of just glance down at it. Nobody really can tell.
Yes.
But the prep itself is modular, because I've been speaking for so long now. I have a stable of signature stories. I've got humor tucked in my back pocket that I can pull out.
Good.
I've got these little routines that I do. One organization that I speak to, I bring up the youngest people in the room, which the audience just loves because they're hiding in plain sight. It's just nobody ever talks to them.
Right.
And they sit in the back of the room because of the youngest people, the least tenured in the room. And so I get them on stage with me, hence the performance
Like that
conversation.
idea.
You see? So by the time you factor Q&A and a couple of other things that are happening, you don't really need as much preparation as you might think if your content is great.
Right. And that's the thing. Producing great content that resonates with the audience.
Yes.
And you have to get the audience to engage. What's interesting about your performance component here, a lot of comedians have been doing this a lot lately.
Yes.
I mean, they will pull and draw in from the audience.
Yes.
And that just becomes their skit.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And what's that guy's name? Matt Rife or something like that?
Matt.
That's his whole thing.
Yeah, he calls it crowd work.
Crowd work? Okay.
Which is interesting. And I was intrigued by the term, but I didn't think he got the term right. So I named my version of it crowd play.
Nice.
And so when I'm with the crowd, I'm not working the crowd, although I know how to do that.
Yeah.
I'm playing with the crowd because it has usually my talks they have some serious messages in them.
Yeah.
How to improve your life, how to become a keynote speaker, how to get your people to follow you if you're a leader.
Right.
If you're in sales, how to make your numbers every month and be the top of the roster. So when it's time to do the performance conversation, I want it to be fun. I don't want it to be like a counseling session. So I call it crowd play.
I like that.
But I'm a big fan of Rife, and a lot of what he does is they're in the audience and they're off mic, and it's very street, very guerrilla
Exactly.
almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's just a downright funny guy.
Yeah.
Matt Rife, if you ever get to watch this, thank you. Subscribe. Hit the notification button.
Yeah, you should be on Mark's podcast.
You should be on. You could join me in. I think I'm booked all the way to September. It'd have to be October. So I mean, I know you're a big deal, but so is this guy.
You say it like you're Italian. I know you're a big deal.
Yeah, he's a big deal. Forget about it. So no, that's interesting. And when I prepare for any kind of speaking thing, and I'm so out of doing engagements, and I haven't done a speaking engagement forever. But I think the last one I did was 2 years ago at Imagine Theater with Terry Bean, Charlie Wahlberg, Princess Castlebear. I mean, there was a big cast of us that did this thing. I don't know if did you go to that?
I've done sessions at the Imagine with Charlie, yes.
With them, okay.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that was the last time I did anything. But I am not polished, as you can imagine, and I want to get back in it. So where I want to go with this show is to kind of expand it beyond the seats here a bit, and then me get out in front a little bit more. But I'm learning how to do that, and I'm learning how to be a little bit more confident.
Well, here's a pro.
Do that.
Yeah, we'll talk about confidence in a second, but here's a pro tip for this polish thing. I've learned in the business, if you're too polished, it's not a good thing. You need you remember when leather, when we were kids and you get a leather coat, they were all it was perfect leather.
Right.
There was nothing, it was flawless. Yeah. And then we learned there's this thing called distress leather. That was even cooler. Yeah. It was leather that looked like it had been through something, Yes. Yeah. And that's what you want when you do your talk, because if it's too polished, the audience smells something's wrong. It's too slick. Yeah. So you want to make, I've been joking for years that if the presentation's going too good, I make mistakes on purpose.
Oh, really?
Oh,
that's
for sure.
Interesting.
Or if I mispronounce a word, that's a gift. Yeah. I just fix it in real time and make fun of myself.
See, that's awesome.
Yeah, because I'm not afraid of the
Being
flaws.
vulnerable and transparent and just having fun.
The Japanese actually have a word for it, and if it wasn't so early in the morning, I would tell you what it is. But it has to do with this being okay with the flaws, being okay with the cracked pot that has a little crack in it. Oh, of course, if it's cracked, it's got a crack in it. Yeah. But the pot that's otherwise perfect, but has a little crack in the side of it. So don't try to get too perfect.
Right.
I think the confidence piece is different for everybody, and a lot of it's in your brainstem. It goes back to when you were a kid, even. So when I do speaker coaching, I'm often kind of a counselor with people. I'm trying to figure out where did the confidence go?
Right.
When we're babies, we're born with 100% confidence. My dad used to marvel at the baby comes out without any issues at all.
No. Not at all.
They're not insecure. They're not shy. They're not withdrawn. There's no emotional issues with a kid under most conditions.
That's probably the closest to perfection we have ever been.
That's exactly right. That's why babies are perfect.
Yeah.
And then what happens is we get embarrassed in the first high school play, or dad starts to like one of the other siblings better than me, my version of it, right?
Right.
And then you take that into your sporting events, and now you're second string shortstop, not first string.
Right.
And before you know it, you're walking with a little hunch, trying to get through your life, and then your boss, your sales manager, asks you to do presentations.
Yeah.
And all that stuff that's in your brainstem starts to show up in your talk. It's on the camera. The prospects see it, which is why you're not banging it as a salesperson.
Yeah.
So the restoration of that confidence comes from a technique called re-imprinting.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, where you actually take you have to wipe the slate clean and rebuild and restore the person's confidence through a trusting relationship, often in a coaching kind of environment, where you kind of overlay all of that bad juju with good stuff. Here's what I see in you. Here's who you are as a real person. And here's where you have a chance to be if you follow these instructions.
Yes.
And if the person applies themselves, it works almost 100% of the time, Mark.
That's what you just said, though. Apply. You have to activate and go out and do it.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say, we talked recently about a topic I'm working on.
Okay.
A lifetime to erase. And in the beginning of that, one would think, well, you can't erase your past. I'm not saying to erase your past.
Right.
But we don't need to focus on the things that don't serve us anymore.
That's right.
And it's learning through taking action, changing your mindset, forgiving others, and definitely forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
To get to that level of confidence, right? It's a mindset change.
In the app, the Canva app, Canva, you're familiar with it.
Oh, yes.
When you create this graphic, you have a chance to move elements in the graphic either forward or backward.
Yes.
So think about like foreground and background. And what you want to do is take that bad stuff that's not serving you anymore, confidence-wise, for example, with presentations, and move it to the background.
Yeah.
And then then what do you get? You have to have something to put in the foreground.
Right.
And which turns out to be what this new person in your life thinks about you, or the feedback you got from the most recent audience that says you're not that old person anymore, or just that little that motivational program you've been listening to, and the further back you can push it, it's still in the graphic.
Yeah.
But it's just not as important. It's not as dominating to the frame.
I like that. Yeah, that's a great way to help people visualize life.
Yeah.
Right? And I've used Canva, but it's not that much. As a designer, I use the Adobe Creative Suite, so I'm using Photoshop, and in there we have layers.
Yeah.
And same thing, I can move things
That's
however
right.
I want, front, forward, or backwards, or fade it. The opacity. And so definitely, but I like how you mention it, how you state that, because when people in life, they get going and all these bad things happen, or whatever it is, the good, the bad, the ugly of their life journey, right? These experiences that we're all collecting.
Right.
That's what defines us. And then how we choose to use those learnings across that journey is what makes us unique and special, right? And I love the fact that when, like in my own life, I can, I don't like talking about other people, but my life, it's helped me really to be sitting here today because, we all have made poor choices. Me probably more than a lot of people, but, doesn't matter. You learn from them. You surround yourself with amazing people like you. And I say that on every episode. Every Tuesday, I go to therapy. Every Tuesday. I will never stop going. I love it. I get guidance, support, strategy, structure. Helps me be more aware. The last 2 months, Michael, I have had the most awareness and clarity in my life than I've ever had in my entire life. It's just all of a sudden, I'm seeing people different. I'm seeing myself different and how I engage the world differently.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
There are people that live their whole life and never had that awareness.
That was me.
Yeah.
Legit, all the way up until about 2 years ago.
You don't have to be specific, but I assume you were distracted by something or multiple things.
Yeah, I think...
because it was there the whole time, you didn't see it, and now you do see it.
Right.
Something must have gotten out of the way, or you got more... Your vision improved. How do you talk about that?
Well, when you and I first met, I had too much confidence. Oh. I feel I was overly confident, borderline cocky. I was still humble back then. I was still very kind.
10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And then I've noticed as I've gone through life, and I've had my ups and downs.
Right.
The last 4 years ago now, maybe 5,
right.
When I actually wrote my book, started to write, I was in a very dark spot. Nobody knew it. I was fighting a demon inside me, a dark depression. On the inside, it was dark. Outside, nobody would know it. I wouldn't allow anyone to see that side of me. And but there was days I couldn't get off my couch at all, and I just couldn't fight the fight. So I finally said, I need to get help to figure this out. And so I did, and it's been awesome. The last year, especially, it's been great.
So
but
so it's the help that provided some of the clarity.
Absolutely. Because you know what? I used to sit there and go, Michael, I don't need help. I change is easy. I can adapt to anything.
Yeah.
Horse shit.
Yeah.
Change, and I've said this so many times on this show, is such a surface level and easily thrown out word. When you're looking to change, something deep inside your soul you have to hit, maybe some people they have to hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
But for some, it's just being sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they are willing to do the work and discover themselves for the first time, or reignite this new person within, and then that becomes a transformation, and that transformation is change, and it's a sustainable change.
Yeah, that's interesting. When I talk to people who call me to talk about improving their presentation skills, getting on the keynote circuit, elevating their lives, some of them want to make some major changes in their lives. They want to leave their job, leave the industry, go out on their own. You have to give these people a lot of credit for even thinking this was possible.
That's bold.
Because it can happen, but it requires a plan. And I think it requires help in the way that you talk about it. And coaching, which is another word that's thrown around a lot.
Yes.
But all professional athletes have a coach. On baseball teams, Major League Baseball teams, there's a pitching coach, there's a batting coach, I believe there's a base stealing coach. Every specialty has somebody that's really good at what they do, and they teach you how to get better at it. So I tell the people that I'm on these calls with, I call it a breakthrough call. And anybody can do one. The website is simple. It's michaelangelocaruso.com/talk.
Go check it out, guys.
michaelangelocaruso.com/talk, and it's lowercase TALK. And then you can book time on my calendar, and we do a little session. It's a free session. I call it a breakthrough call. And I ask people, I say to them, what kind of change would you like to make? Would you like to make incremental change, or would you like to make quantum change?
Right.
And some of them want a little bit of clarity in the question. What do you mean by that exactly?
I was going to say that.
And I say to them, well, and I do this with my arm every time. I say, think about no change like a flat, a linear thing almost.
Yes.
And incremental change is just this slight ramp, right? Just a little bit like that. And quantum change is like that.
Right.
Right? Very steep. And they'll think about this and they'll say, the answer is, the default answer for most people, 70% of them, they say, well, I think I'd be okay with incremental change.
Right.
And I say, well, that's good to know. Because if you're choosing incremental change, you are opting out of quantum change.
Yeah. Or there's fear.
And then I tell them, I specialize in quantum change,
Yeah.
in getting that for you.
Nice.
It turns out that that's the beginning of our conversation, because then they say, tell me more about quantum change. And once they start adjusting, and I don't invite everybody to enroll in the group because it's still not a fit for some people, and if you're not a fit, I can't help you.
Nope.
I only work with people I'm 100% sure I can help. And if we get to some terms like quantum change within a certain period of time, this, and this, based on where you are right now, we got a deal.
So, I mean, you do, in addition to being a keynote speaker, an author, a husband, and a good friend, I mean, you do coaching, right? Obviously.
I'm also a Leo.
A Leo. Okay. That explains it. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I felt bad that you left that out, man. Okay.
Oh, that's funny. See, that's Michael throwing in some humor in
That's
here.
reflexive humor,
and giving
everybody.
Me shit. Woo-hoo. My goodness. Sometimes when I'm sitting here, and I'm trying to perfect, how I present myself on my show. I find myself lately trying to not stare too long in my guest's eyes, and I'll look over and I'll look back, but I'm trying to be more engaged in the conversation. I used to, when I first started, when you watched the first episodes, I would look and I'd be like, okay, do I look at the camera now? Hey guys, how you doing? But I try to do a balance. Give me some tips on that.
Sure. Well, it depends on the style of your podcast.
Right.
Do you want the viewer to be an observer, or do you want them to be a participant? Perhaps the show that did that the best was The Office with Steve Carell, where he would say something to one of the characters, and then or sometimes he would just look at the camera and say it to the camera, and give him that goofy look that he had, and then he would go back to the players again. It doesn't feel like that's the kind of show that you want to have, where you're kind of mugging to the camera all the time.
Right.
So what I think is good is more this conversational style for what you've got going here.
Exactly.
And I have seen a couple of your episodes. I think they're really good.
Thank you.
But there are some people that they want to involve the audience a little bit more.
Yeah.
Another version of this is I can't think of the guy's name, but he's a former sports announcer, and now he has all these celebrities come. Dan Patrick, maybe. I think it's Dan Patrick.
Yeah, sure.
And he has a similar setup. So he's talking to Kevin Costner, but he's got a crew of guys around, and he incorporates the guys in the crew, just like Howard Stern does on his radio show.
I actually like that format, how he does that.
But you have to have a big production for that. You've got to have a team of people. You've got to have a switcher, which is that automatic cut, somebody working the camera.
Yes.
And it's not as intimate as what you've got going here.
Yeah.
And based on the kinds of things I see you talking about with your guests and what we've talked about today, I think this is the perfect. The quick reference might be at the intro when you're speaking directly to the camera. I kind of have been playing to the camera in a subtle way as I show my book.
Right.
I didn't show it to you like this. I'm showing it to.
I noticed that.
It's called a 3/4, and so the camera's getting it, but I'm talking to you, but I'm showing it to the camera.
Right.
Right. So I think a lot of this comes from just camera skills and trial and error, and good for you for monitoring the first few that you did and figuring it out, because a lot of people will go, like I said, a whole season without fixing it.
Yeah. And I have to give Michael some credit here because my old studio, it was intimate still, obviously good conversation, but it was more of a desk.
Yeah.
And a typical podcast style with the microphone. And I didn't like that. It was it's just too cut and, I don't know, just too standard, I guess. And it wasn't as relaxing. So you're the one who told me you really should have your guests at a more of a 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
And so when I moved into this new studio and started building this out, I was like, well, I'm going to get rid of that damn desk and that old stodgy microphone. I'm going to buy some nicer equipment, buy some chairs, and they're at an angle like you said, so I listened. And I like this format a lot better. Everyone that's been watching the new episodes, they actually love it and they like the intimacy of it. It's more close, it's more personable. Warmer, thank you. Yeah, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It was great advice.
My pleasure.
So, what's next in the world of Michael, and any more books on the horizon?
There's
any big speaking gigs coming up?
Yeah, big stuff coming. First thing, we're going to have some fun in Ohio this weekend at a music festival.
Oh.
In a small little city called Hamilton.
Okay.
I can't wait to go. I don't know much about it except they call it Jamilton this weekend.
Jamilton,
and they
with
go
the
through all
jams.
the street signs and they change the H to a J.
That's pretty cool.
Just for the weekend. So we're looking to have some fun, and I like to have a balanced life. You know, when I leave to go out on trips, we like to leave early and come back late. We have some fun on either side of it. You know, life should be like that.
Right.
We have a honeymoon planned in Italy in October. Can't wait for that.
Yeah.
I've been invited to a third TED Talk. One will be in Detroit. We still have to put it together. But it's going to be featuring the three big service clubs in the area, which are Rotary, Optimus, and Kiwanis.
Nice.
And we're going to get a variety of people on stage and talk a little bit about giving back and how important it is to have that kind of balance in your life.
Very nice. Now, you're going to Tuscany in October.
Yes, that's right. We talked about wine country.
Yeah. So my buddy, I reached out to him for you, Giuseppe Sala. And for those of you that don't know Mr. Giuseppe Sala, good friend of mine, beautiful, beautiful winemaker. His wines are amazing. Michael and his lovely wife, Renee, were talking about going to Tuscany. I said, hey, I have a good friend, Giuseppe Sala. He owns I Salvatici Vineyards in Tuscany. And he said, when you guys are, give him enough heads up, but so you got to do that for me. And he said he'll host and really make sure you guys have a good Tuscan, authentic experience.
Thank you for that.
So,
and thank you for being on my podcast because you gave my listeners a bunch of tips on wine, including some modestly priced quality reds and whites.
Right.
And thank you for that.
Yeah, that was fun. Thank you.
My podcast is on Podbean and iTunes, all the major platforms, and it's called Talk to Me if you want to search it. And Mark was very nice to guest on the show. Oops, I just played to the camera.
Yeah, you just did. I love that. See? Professional. You might know a thing or two, guys, about presenting. So tell me a little bit more. I mean, you've been married now, but it's not. You guys been together for a minute.
Yeah, we were together for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Just about the time we thought maybe it felt good to get married, COVID came onto the scene.
Yes.
We had a very busy first 3 or 4 years because of the travel situation, and I don't have a normal lifestyle, and I think Renee's picked up on that pretty quickly, and she likes it. But I on Twitter or X, and Instagram, it's #SpeakerLife, because it's a speaking lifestyle when we travel as much as we do.
Right.
And so. Things sometimes don't happen on the schedule that we want them to happen. So we were really glad we were finally able to get that sorted out. And then you had asked about my next book. It's a book on leadership.
Okay. And
it'll be out before the end of the year because I have some special plans for selling it in Q1 of next year.
Beautiful.
And again, Amazon, the title's not yet fixed yet, but it'll be easy to find.
Nice.
But someone once said that the secret of life, James Taylor said the secret of life is enjoying the passage of time. Mm-hmm. But a wiser person than James Taylor said the secret of life is having something to look forward to.
Ooh, I like that.
So I always try to have some projects. Sometimes I don't understand how they're going to come together yet. But the Italy thing was a gleam in our eye when Renee put it together. She spent a lot of time on it, making it, crafting it,
Very nice.
cultivating a fantastic vacation for us.
It's a lot to plan for.
Yeah.
And you got to have some fun. You got to maybe turn it into a little bit of business opportunities. You never know. I mean, especially as a speaker and you're traveling, there might be something abroad that.
Well, I hope so. I'm taking some business cards.
That's right. Yeah, take a suitcase full of them.
But the other thing is, the average person spends a lot more time crafting the vacation than they do the 5-year plan.
That's crazy to think about, but I can see that.
When Malcolm Gladwell, he didn't come up with a statistic, but he reported what this Danish, I believe it was a Danish researcher, came up with this 10,000 hours concept. And he said, if you've been doing something for 10,000 hours, you're an expert at it. The 10,000 hours is 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. That's 2,000 hours a year times 5. 5 times 2,000 is 10,000 hours.
Yes.
And so the concept is that if you're that good at something, you're an expert. And if you're an expert, why not become a recognized expert? Because everybody wants to work with one. You've done this in at least 3. You're like our little Anthony Bourdain. You've remade 3 industries. Bourdain remade journalism.
Right.
He remade cooking. And he remade the travel industry.
Yeah, he did.
He's a monster. And fantastic. And so being able to think about your 5-year plan and try to put something together that would not only elevate your own position in life, but also elevate your family's quality of life, it's an amazing thing.
It's interesting because, Renee's going to be on next week, sitting where you're at. And when I look at
seat warmer,
he's warming up your seat, Renee. and for those just kind of checking in or whatever, she's behind sitting in the studio over here. But when I look at you two, I'm envious because you guys are, in my opinion, you guys are a power couple. Like, I'm wondering, who's type? I mean, you guys seem like both type A. I mean, that's an interesting conversation around the dinner table at times, I'm sure.
Yeah.
No, I'm right. No, you're right.
Well, sometimes both people can be right.
Right.
Right. And it happened on the way here. We were talking about something. And it turns out we were both wrong.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's the great illusion of life. It
Right.
really doesn't matter who's right and wrong. It's just what's happening in the now.
Right.
It's not important to be right. What's important is to communicate.
Communicate, and you're both, at the right mindsets. You're both, to me, you guys are a growth partnership.
Yeah.
It's about being each other's cheerleaders along the journey, the good, the bad, and just supporting each other on that. When you're up, and when you're down, you're going to be back up. And I love that. I mean, that's what I see when I look at you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. We work hard at it, and humor's a very important part.
Well, she's married to you. Come on.
What? Just last night, we had a nice laughing spell, and Renee said, "Oh, I love laughing with you." And I said, "You were laughing at me." And she said, "It doesn't matter. We were having fun."
That's right. You're laughing at me. Oh my God! I could see that. I can see that. It's healthy though to have a partnership like that. And then again, I think presentation, right, in your personal life, like you've shared some examples. Presentation in your professional life. I mean, that's really the no-brainer here. I mean, that's the bigger, probably where most people are going to spend the majority of their time. But having a partner that understands that, you said lifestyle, that speaker lifestyle. Now, Renee's been doing some speaking with her stuff. Her and I are going to get more into that next week. But so that, with her schedule, your schedule, do you guys kind of collaborate and try to get them so that they're close to each other, or just so you guys aren't in airplanes passing each other by?
Yeah, we try to dovetail. So we figure out ways that she can go with me on my trips. I can go with her on her trips. She was working with, it's a little too soon to announce it formally, but she was working to establish a proposal for an organization on the west side of the state.
Okay.
She had to go out to meet with them. And she invited me to go along. Well, that's nectar for me because I get a chance to spend the weekend with my wife. Otherwise, she gets in the car, bye, honey, see you when you get back. Fortunately, I was able to go, but that's that speaker life thing that we just talked about.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So I think couples, this is my version of it anyway, you can ask Renee next week, but I think couples, what they do is they try to grow like this, parallel.
Okay.
But it's hard because they're two separate people. They develop different interests. One of them likes to exercise, the other one doesn't.
Yes.
Turns out we both do. But we have things that she has things she likes to do that I don't care to do.
Right.
What happens instead a lot of the time is one person's on the ascent and the other one loses interest, and you get this drift.
Right.
That is not good news.
Right.
The other thing that can happen is it goes this way, and that's another kind of drift.
Yes. Yeah.
To travel parallel with somebody and grow with them for any length of time
Yeah.
is practically a miracle.
Yeah, I was gonna say that would be pretty challenging. Obviously doable. You guys have,
So far,
I don't
so
know
good.
about mastered it, but you seem to have it nailed down pretty well. So
And
congrats.
I think just having similar values and
yeah.
appreciating each other, and if she sees something I don't, I try not to dissuade her from it, and I try not to give up on it. I try to hang in there because she's a sensible person, and if she thinks this is a good idea, there must be
Right.
something to it.
Yeah.
Rather than fall away from it, I'll just hang
Be
in there.
open-minded and go for the ride.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah.
So, Michael, you were a rock star in your past life. You transitioned to the superstar, still on the stages of the world, keynote speaker, coach, trainer, husband now. How do they all fit into what you do? Like, what? There's elements across your experience, right?
Yeah.
What's the commonality between those three?
Well, I'll do my Steve Carell. A little background. In the 80s, I was in a boy band with my brothers. We were the first boy band. And we traveled around quite a bit. So it was a 10-year thing in the music business. And then after that, I got into sales. And then when my father died is when I got into the speaking business. So it's been an interesting 3-industry career.
Okay.
And I tell people now I don't have, there's a lot of similarities to what I do now and what we did in the music business. I still travel for a living. I still sign autographs. I signed your book today, right?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
And you signed one to me.
I
Thank
did.
you. So I still travel for a living. I still sign autographs, but I don't have groupies anymore.
Yes, you do. Well, no, well.
I have one.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know if she's. I was going to say, well, better watch it. No, you don't have a groupie. She's your roadstar manager or whatever in life.
Yeah. But it's a very similar, it's this, right?
Yeah.
For me, it was very similar. I don't have to vote on anything anymore with my band about
Right.
what we're going to do. I get to decide. This is all 20 years past now, so I'm kind of settled into this lifestyle.
Right.
But it's interesting how, to all the youngsters out there, if you think your life is going to go in a straight line like that,
Right.
it's just not how it works. There's this sawtooth thing.
Right.
And all any of us are trying to do is figure it out.
I heard something interesting. Somebody explained, the old term, climbing the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
And it was on a podcast, and I wish I can remember who it was so I can give him credit for it, but I heard this individual explain today's new business world it's not climbing the corporate ladder. It's playing in the jungle gym.
Oh yeah, because it's not straight up.
Right. I mean, there's obstacles, there's slides, there's all this, there's movement, there's transition from this part of the, where you're at down here trying to get here.
But
it's a jungle gym, right? To get to that.
I've heard the same kind of thing that 20-somethings, for example.
Right.
Let's use another example. 60-somethings are very familiar with the top-down corporate leadership.
Yes.
It actually comes from the military.
Yes.
But 20-somethings don't recognize the top-down.
No, they
That's
don't.
when we started calling doctors by their first name,
Right.
right? Or chefs by their first name.
Yeah.
Chef Gordon. But what's magical about the way 20-somethings think about it is they don't think about top-down, they think about hives,
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's that 3-dimensional, more variety,
Yeah.
and it has to do with connectivity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I do think that's the place for all 60-year-olds to be now as well. You
Yeah.
got to lose that top-down thing and think more about the jungle gym
Right.
which is challenging for 60-year-olds on a couple of levels.
Exactly.
And it wouldn't hurt, by the way, for 20-somethings to recognize that the 60-year-olds are still recognizing and paying homage to the top-down model.
Right, right.
This is one of the reasons why we have a generation gap, is that the generations still, as always, have trouble relating to each other.
Yeah, yeah. There's a big difference. I mean, wow. It's interesting to see where our world is at and the level of attention, I should say the lack of.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's interesting. We're in an interesting. I'm gonna keep it simple. Interesting place in life these days.
Good for you.
But episode 13.
Lucky 13.
Yeah. Last week was funny. When I was doing my introduction with Terry Bean, I just, just did my normal intro, and it came out so quick and easy, and I actually said episode 13. And he waited till I was done, and he goes, I hope you're not going to be mad, but you said episode 13. This is episode 12. I go, no, I didn't say that. When I was doing editing, I'm like, damn it, I did say that.
That's funny.
So I had to correct myself, and I didn't obviously edit it out. It's all in there, because I don't do a lot of, once I start, I edit the stuff, and in the back end, and then the rest is this. It is this.
Not perfect.
Right.
But pretty close.
Pretty damn awesome. I'll say that.
I want to come back on 50.
That's right. We'll double the episodes and bring you back. What would you leave our audience with today as it relates to, presentation, being a better human being in this world, and how you present yourself to be that? What would you leave?
Well,
what would you like to say, I should say?
You had mentioned it's a very interesting time. I think it's sometimes hard to have hope. It's sometimes we get caught up in world affairs and how bad things are.
Right.
I would just say that things always work out, and not get too caught up in the moment, no matter what the headline is,
right,
in the paper or in the blog or in the website, that things are going to work out. We just need more good people in the world, people doing good things, thinking good thoughts, and I would ask everybody to consider being one of those people.
I love that. Great advice. Episode 13, brother. Thanks
this is episode 12.
No, yeah, that's right. We had to reverse it today. Well, this has been fun. I'm so grateful you're sitting here with me today.
My pleasure. We're going to get out again socially, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so. We will, not hope. Hope's not a strategy.
Let's do it.
So, you guys, episode 13 with Michael Angelo Caruso. Thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit notifications so you don't miss other amazing episodes like this. Share this message. Let us build stronger communities. There's somebody out there that needs to hear this advice, this guidance, and have access to resources that can truly help them. Guys, have a great day. Love you guys. Imagine better. There we go.